Yeah. Good morning, everybody. From Udaipur. I initially thought I would connect to my headphones, but I found the ambient noise around here quite interesting. You'll hear mooing of cows and buffaloes and a lot of chatter behind me. So, yeah, on behalf of Ethos Foundation, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you joining in today for our special webinar on rating systems and design deliberation. This is our second open session for all under the Arcause SAaTh Mentorship Initiative. And our objective is to stop the reinvention of the wheel that happens with many young practices. There's already so much information available, and it'll be nice if that's available to them and they don't need to perform some of the search on their own. While I think it's nice to perform your search and arrive at your way of doing things, but at least some of the information that's already available should be in public domain of sorts. Seldom do established practices get a chance to mentor young, fresh practices. And that's something that I've been hearing from the mentors for this program, where they're coming back and saying they're very excited. And this is the first time that they are actually formally mentoring a practice. Most young practices learn from their errors and grow with experience. And we are intending through this initiative to cut this cycle short and through the mentorship initiative, where this whole Arcause SAaTh mentorship is supported by the Emphasis F1 Foundation. 7 young practices under this are receiving valuable directions and guidance on their projects from reputed established practices. Today's event brings together industry leaders who are at the forefront of the green building movement. And we have a packed session full of insights, case studies, and real-world applications that hopefully will deepen our understanding of sustainable architecture. Whether you're a seasoned professional or new to this field, there's always something valuable to learn for everyone. I'll now pass this session on to Ankita to share an overview of today's session. Ankita, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Hello, everyone. I will take you through the quick overview of today's session. We will first start with GBCI rating system. In this, we will discuss the intricacies of the rating system and how it can shape the way we approach green building design. Second, we will have designing for sustainability. Following that, we will explore sustainable design independent of any rating system. It will focus on critical aspects, which will discuss how you can design energy efficient buildings and eco-friendly buildings. And last, we will have a case study, a GRIHA Rated project, that is IIT Kanpur. So we will cover the details of a rating system, introduce you to a design principles to consider, and lastly, we will demonstrate through a project. So this opportunity is especially for our mentees as part of the mentorship awards, which is under Arcause SAaTh. And it is supported by Emphasis F1 Foundation and executed by Ethos Foundation. These sessions or lectures will run back to back and will be followed up with a consolidated Q&A at the end of the conversation. Except for Mr. Raman K, we will have his Q&A discussion right before his lecture. And moving on, we would like to thank our partners and collaborators. Sustainability, as we all know, is a goal that requires collective action. And this event is made possible through our partners. So we are very proud to be joined by organizations such as GBCI, Biome Environmental Trust, the Rainwater Project, Tarun Bharat Sangh, Out of the Box, Sustainable India, and media partners, the Architect's Diary. Their commitment to sustainability helps shape the future of our built environment. Without much ado, I would now like to welcome and invite Mr. Raman K from GBCI, one of the leading experts in the field of green building certifications, to the screen, and he will guide us through the GBCI rating system. He will also help us understand the key features and benefits of obtaining a GBCI certification. Over to you, Raman sir.
Thank you, Ankita, and thank you, Ms. Geeta Balakrishnan, for giving us an opportunity to be part of this unique initiative. In fact, we were part of your jury session, and the initiative which you have taken in terms of the mentoring the professional, it's very highly appreciated. Uh, we are glad to be part of this, and today's session, I'll take you through the overview of what from US GBC, GBCI we are doing in the market. So allow me to share my screen. Able to see my screen? Screen
Yes, sir,
visible?
we can
Yeah,
see your
thank
screen.
you. So, first of all, greetings from US Green Building Council and GBCI. So, we represent two organizations. One is called US GBC, which owns the brand lead. So, whatever the rating programs we are developing, it belongs to US Green Building Council. Wherein GBCI is extended arm of US GBC, which administer the program. So, whatever the projects we are certifying on lead, as well as the credentialing, which is in terms of the lead professional, all is being driven and administered by GBCI. And we are a 30 years old organization. In fact, USGBC was formed in 1993, and we started our first version of LEAD in 1998. So we have crossed close to 30 years of experience. And all these years, what are we trying to do in terms of seeing how we can transform the built environment, particularly the building cities and communities, the way they are being designed, built, and operated in a sustainable way. That's what our the mission of the entire USGBC and the rating program which we have developed. As I told, we are predominantly known for lead in the market. This was the journey of lead, as I mentioned. The pilot program launched in 1998. Now we are working on in 2025. We are working on our version called V5. So this is our entire journey. So we also keep iterating our own rating programs at least once in 5 years to see that how we can make sure the buildings which are designed, built, and operated are more efficient as well as performance oriented. So that's what our main objective is all about. And as I mentioned, even though it's a global program, we also try to see how we can regionalize and localize to suit the Indian context or the local context. We also refer to some of the standards available in the local regions. So this is the lead rating program is being used by companies and stakeholders all over the world. This is a quick snapshot of the impact so far through our the initiatives as well as the program. We have close to 20,000, 200,000 projects globally in 186 countries. In fact, on the impact, we also try to measure the impact which has made from these certification programs. Whatever the employees or the tenants which are being in the certified spaces, they are more productive as well as in terms of happy being a certified spaces more than a conventional buildings. Another thing is apart from the energy saving, water saving, and waste management, one of the trigger which every the owner of the building or the corporate which they want to know is how I'm keeping my employees health and wellness as well as how they are productive. So this is making more impact. Just to give a number in terms of the India, so we are the third largest market outside US in terms of the certified footprint. We have close to 5,000 projects participating in LEED. We also have close to 1,800 professionals now who are the advocates in terms of propagating LEED in the market. In fact, in the call, we have both Mr. Tanmay and Abhishek, who are one of our, I would say, the key ambassadors in terms of propagating LEED across the asset classes. We every year also rate or rank the global certified footprint. So India continues to be the third position on the global rank in terms of certified footprints every year. So we are continuing this for last 3 years. So when we develop a rating program or even upgrade our versions, we always keep these systems goals in mind. One is how this program is going to enhance the individual human health, or how it is going to enhance the quality of life, how apart from whatever the savings they are going to get, how it is going to protect and enhance the biodiversity. So these are the the broad system goals which we'll always keep in mind in terms of when we are coming up with any new product offerings or when we are even upgrading our own rating programs. And the minimum program requirement to qualify for any projects to look at as LEED certification is it should be in a permanent location on existing land. It should have a reasonable boundary and it should also comply with the minimum project size. As I mentioned, we started only with the commercial office space. Now all asset classes are going for LEED certification, starting from your university campus to airports to data centers, healthcare. So you name any asset classes, we have a case studies globally as well as in India, which has pursued LEED and also awarded certification. It also applicable for any project type. For example, if you are constructing a new standalone building, so the LEED is applicable. You can look at building design and construction. If a tenant is taking a lease space within a multi-tenanted commercial office, they can look at the interior design and construction rating program. Any existing building which is being constructed, operated, and for last minimum of 1 year, so they can look at the operation maintenance certification. We also recently come out with a certification to address a large mixed-use development project, be it at city level or at a large-scale communities level. And for residential, we came out with a India adapted version called the LEED 4.1 residential, which is applicable for any high-rise residential project, even a single-family homes, that is a villa project also. So LEED is applicable for any project types. These are the level of certification you get. Minimum score you need to achieve to get into LEED is 40. Anything above 50 to 60 is called silver, 60 and above 60 to 80 is called gold, and 80 above is called the platinum. So these are the various rating levels you'll get it based on the scores being awarded as for the project. As I mentioned, in terms of building design and construction, so all these ratings will be either building design or interior design or the operation maintenance. We also have a score, the checklist or a scorecard, where it revolves around these are key metrics. One is on location, transportation, sustainable sites, water efficiency. So across the credit categories, we have there are two things. One is called the minimum requirement, which is a prerequisite which the project has to attain, and the optional credits. So depending upon the one is, as I mentioned, the prerequisite is a mandatory. Then depending upon the optional credit we choose and being awarded, the project will be qualified on across the certification levels. So these are the, I'm not going in depth into the scorecard. So these are the scorecard for the new construction PDC project. Similarly, for the interior design and construction, when they're going for certification, these are the scorecard. And for operation maintenance, so we also had a same documentation route. Plus, 5 years back, we came out with a technology platform which will help the project team in terms of inputting the data, tracking the performance of the building, and the same platform will also help you in terms of the LEED certification. So what this platform will do is it will take inputs of data across 5 parameters. One is on energy in terms of the building energy use. For the last 12 months of consecutive data we need. Similarly, water consumption data of the building for last 12 months. Waste, transportation, human experience, at least we need one data in a year to generate a score. So once the facilities team input the data into the platform, it will automatically generate a score. The score at the center is your the overall project score. And once it is being reviewed by our the review team, it will be awarded. And the platform also will help you in terms of giving a benchmarking of where you stand in terms of global, the same similar project in national, what is the national benchmark where you stand, similarly on the international. This platform also will help in terms of you have multiple projects, we have portfolio of projects. So you can also track in one dashboard in terms of how the different projects are doing in terms across these 5 parameters. And this platform also is helping the project team in terms of their own internal ESG reporting. So we also connected or integrated with one of the ESG framework called GRIHA. So automatically, once the project input the data on their performance score into this platform, it will also help them in terms of the ESG score also. Similar to building, as I mentioned earlier, we also for any large mixed-use development project, we came out with a rating program on LEED for cities and communities. So it is applicable for both. One is at a plan and design. So once the master plan is done, you can look at LEED for cities and communities plan and design. In case if the entire development is constructed, more than 75% of the project is constructed, then you can look at lead for communities existing. On the residential front, we launched a residential program, which is either you can look at for a single family home, as I mentioned, for villa project, or multi-family project, either at a fit out stage or even at the core and shell or for the fully. So this what it is, the residential program adaptation. And the interesting fact is we came out with an India adaptation also for the residential program. So we took the feedback from all the stakeholders and we adapted this the rating program to suit the Indian context. The next one is in line with the net zero vision. We came out with a certification program, not the rating program. So what will this do is any certified project, the minimum prerequisite, it should be a certified project either at a building design and construction stage or at an operation maintenance. Once a project is certified, the layer in terms of moving towards net zero is LEED Zero program. So this certification is valid for 3 years. So you need to provide last 12 months of operation data. The zero is applicable is you have 4 levels of the 4 categories you can get a LEED Zero certification. One is on the LEED Zero energy or carbon or water or waste. Again, India here, the good news is we are standing #1 in terms of global ranking on the LEED Zero certified projects. These are the number of projects which are doing. Again, we have case studies across all the 4 categories of LEED Zero in India, certifications in India. The last one is, see, whatever we are doing, so being a council, we are doing in terms of the development of the program or administering the rating program. But without the support of the ecosystems, we have like lead professionals or lead consultants, lead proven providers, we can't do it. So we also try to do how we can make sure that the sustainable education is being embedded in the either in the curriculum or with the professional. So we have a huge education content in our portal. So we are now close to 1,000+ education courses, which are there are few free courses, there are on-demand courses. So depending upon the professionals or the scope of work, can pick and choose the courses. And for professionals, the next level who are from the project team or the facilities, if they want to become a credential, then they will take up. We have one is called Green Associate, the first step in terms of the credentialing. Once you become a lead green associate, then you will move into the lead professional depending upon the specialty where you are. Suppose if you are looking at the new construction project, so you look at lead AP for building design construction, or if you are looking at only interior fit out projects, again lead AP ID and C, or if you are looking at an operational assess, then you can look at lead AP for O&M. Apart from that, we also launched 2 very basic foundation course, which can be taken by every employees in the organization. Now, if you see the entire the organization, everybody are talking about the sustainability. When they are looking at when they are preaching outside on the sustainability, they also want to make sure that employees knows about what they are doing. So these are the 2 simple courses which anybody can take it, even from the front office desk to admin team. So they can go through it. It's a very simple video. So once they gone through the video, there is a simple quiz they can take, and according to that, they will also get a digital badge they can host it. So this is what we try to do, so that across the organization, they can know about what is sustainable, a simple basic course. And as I mentioned, this is a professional. If you want to look at a lead professional as a next level of career, you can look at this. With respect to the universities, what we are trying to do is we are also in every university now, they have a definitely a curriculum on sustainability as part of an elective. So we have two strategies which are working with these colleges. One is we have a higher education subscription, which is called a campus subscription. It is similar to a digital library in the campus. So the universities can subscribe for it. Once they do it, the students and the faculties in the university will have unlimited access to the education content. That's a one thing which you are trying to do in terms of the content part. The second thing is we have a concept called Lead Lab, wherein what we are trying to do is in the colleges, they will form a set of students who can enroll under the Lead Lab. The students and the faculties will go through this curriculum on sustainability. They'll also go through energy simulation modeling at the same campus. And at the end, with the USGBC faculty and the faculty within the campus, the students will pick up a project within a building within the campus and do a lead certification for that. So this way, this will help them in terms of one is apart from the subject which they are looking at in terms of assembly, they also have a hands-on experience in terms of handling a project. In fact, we have started this with two of the universities in India. One is Amity University in Haryana. The second one is with Nitai Architectural Colleges in Mangalore. This is what it is from my side in terms of a quick overview about what we are doing in India, particularly on lead. If you have any questions, open to that. And I think people like Tanmay and Abhishek, who are, see, as I clearly mentioned, we are only from a certifying body. We are coming up with the standards. We are upgrading standards. Even when we do that, we'll also take a consultation group. So we'll take inputs from the market, from the experts like them. We will try to put it in our rating program. Again, we'll open up for public comments, depending upon how the project is, how the region is giving a feedback. So we'll also try to incorporate those changes in our rating program, and finally it will be launched. So that's a process we'll do, and they are the real ambassadors in terms of propagating lead in the market. Any projects comes first in terms of a sustainability rating, so they are the people who are advocating us in terms of why can't you go for this rating typology, or so they are the people who are supporting us, and thank you for all these supports from these stakeholders. And any questions, I'm open to take it.
Thank you so much, Raman sir. This was very brief and precise. Uh, uh, I would like to request participants to drop in their questions in the chat, or if they wish to turn on their cameras and ask the question, this is the time.
Hi, Raman sir. It was an interesting and very insightful uh, presentation. I wanted to know if we want to apply for the rating and also if we want to um, get our building certified, what is the starting process? Like, should something be done in the design stage? And also, what support will we be getting from lead? Like, will there be a guidance that you should do these things so that these changes should be done? That kind of guidance will be there, or will it be more like we are submitting and then it is poured on basis?
Yeah, thank you. See, what we recommend is, suppose if there are any new project comes, number one, it should start at a design stage. So because once the design is done and you started constructing, looking at to lead framework and doing all the changes, it will have a lot of impact. So we recommend them to do at a design stage itself. And you should also have a lead professional on board, because as I mentioned, the lead professional and lead consultants, they know the entire the framework, so they can able to handle the project team correctly in terms of what are the documentation required and where they stand in terms of the current rating level, so they can able to guide you. So the first thing first is, as I said, at a design stage you should also have to rope in a lead professional on board as soon as you are finalizing to go for a certification, so that they can handhold you. The third thing is, once everything is in place and the project is convinced in terms of the desired level of rating program, then the project will be registered with us for the certification. Normally, any new construction project, for example, if it is a standalone building which is going for certification, from the time of registration to certification, it will take minimum 3 to 4 years. So the project is registered at a design stage once the design is finalized and all the stakeholders are finalized. Then once the construction is done and even the entire commissioning is being done, the lead consultant will submit the project to us. So we will do the review and award the certification depending upon the qualification of the project.
Okay, so we have one in the chat box, sir, by Sheikh Muhammad Ansari. He wants to know how universities can access and register for the lead labs.
Yeah,
Raman sir.
I can send you the details for the lead lab. So initially, it should have the university should have a stream in terms of either architectural or mechanical engineering or civil engineering. So then it will be helpful for them going for a lead lab system. So I will share more details on that.
That answers the question for Anupriya ma'am as well. She also asked the same question about this. Um, what would be the registration process? Okay.
No,
And
for the project, yes, we have a registration process. There are two fees which they will pay to the council. One is the registration, and the second one is certification. So registration is irrespective of whatever the built-up area of the project, wherein certification fee depends upon the built-up area of the project, excluding the parking area. Wherein for the lead lab, so there is no fee involved for them at the initial stage. Only they'll be paying to us when the students are selecting a project and submitting it for review at that time. Again, it is the same, the registration fee as well as the certification depending upon the built-up area of the project. And all are available in our website. You can, for different categories, the fees is different. For example, BDC, there is a different fee. And it also ranges between, if it is a project below 2.5 lakh square feet, there is a range, again, 2.5 to less than 5 lakhs. So for all the three rating typology, the fees are available in our website. So you can able to do it.
okay, thank you, sir. We have next from Dhanashri. She is asking free simulation softwares for students to get an idea about how to make a green building at design level.
Need to check on that. I'm so sorry, but I can check and let you know. I'll just make a question of it.
And
Maybe Abhishek, you have been able to use
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, sure. So there are a lot of free tools which are available, which can be used. So for example, there are tools like Open Studio, which can be used. Then there is eQuest. So there are tools which are available. We can share a list of free tools as well as subscription-based tools.
Thank you, Abhishek.
yeah, thank you, Abhishek, sir. The other one is from Shraddha. She's asking, do you have a list of materials that are LEED certified, which may be considered at the time of specification and budgeting?
Yeah, it is not a LEED certified material, but what we encourage the project is to use a product which are certified under EPD or HPD. So we have a list of products available which are already EPD, HPD certified, which we can just give a link to you, ma'am, so that you can share it with them later.
Okay. And sir, I would like to ask a very basic question. To lead or not to lead, why are rating systems important? Can't architects just go on doing good work in sustainable projects? Why do we need rating systems? And how do we know which project needs to be considered for a rating system?
One is all these ratings programs are voluntary, so there is no mandatory that you should definitely go for a rating program. In fact, many of the projects we saw that for example, there may be a developer who wants to go for a certification for some of these marquee projects, but in few projects, since he has done a specification, everything based on the certification for marquee project, they can follow the same for their other projects also, where they may not go for a certification. So, but the whatever the rating program we came out, it will help them in terms of saying that how they can do in terms of the orientation of the building, to what are the materials to be selected, how it is helping them in terms of the operation and maintenance cost. So these rating programs, when they do at a design stage, it will definitely help them in terms of the overall operation and maintenance experience. So based on this, now many of the developers are also designing and constructing the building, but they are not go for a certification also. But this will help them in terms of the overall operational efficiency and giving a better performance property. And it also help them in terms of getting a good tenant also for them.
Okay, we have one more. Thank you so much, sir, for that answer. We have one more. Is there a scope at these rating systems of lead to test prototypes at a scale and assess sustainability impact, be it building materials or systems that are developed?
Maybe what not sure about the new one, but the tool which I mentioned about, so that many of the existing projects are using it to see where they stand in terms of the operational efficiency. So this tool is not only helping them to go for certification, initially it will also help them in terms of tracking the performance of the building and how they can, where they can do implementation in terms of making the scores are higher in individual categories. So that platform will help them for a operational building, wherein for a new one, uh, not just prototypes at a scale. I'm not sure what is the for a new one. I couldn't able to immediately answer this. See, our tool calculates what they do is based on the, for example, if you take the energy, so based on the energy consumption, it will give you the equivalent carbon emission for it. But how to calculate the LC and carbon footprints? Abhishek, can you help here on this part?
Yeah. So LCA and
Because
carbon footprinting, we have to use specialized database tools like one-click LCA to quantify, because when we look at embodied carbon of a building, there are a lot of materials which we have to factor in, and also the quantities of material plays a very important factor. So we can use tools like one-click LCA to quantify the life cycle carbon and equivalent carbon footprint of any project. Carbon footprint can also be in two aspects. One is the embodied carbon, which is typically the carbon
yes,
which gets consumed during the construction of the project. And then second part is the operational carbon, which is typically the emissions associated with operation of the building, which is typically all the energy which is getting consumed. So one-click LCA like tools will give you the embodied carbon estimation for estimating the operational carbon. Uh, Pre-design of the building, you have to use any simulation tools to come up with what will be the anticipated operational carbon for the proposed project.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, sir. Sir, last question. As we
Coming in,
know, we
let me come in a bit. Ellen, does that answer your question? Because I think your question was about prototype testing prototypes to a scale. Would you like to unmute and clarify if it doesn't answer your question? So Elanga Kumaran is one of our grant recipients, and he's
okay.
working on a project for at Ahmedabad. And okay, you're not able to unmute, is it? Yeah, here.
Great, thank you. Pardon me, I'm not able to switch on my video.
Hmm.
Um, so, sir, I think you had got the question right. Where I'm getting at is, we are looking at building rating systems and the overall performance ratings and sustainability impacts. Where I'm getting at is, in some cases, when you also presented the Arcause tools and doing the rating systems for lead under urban scenarios, is there a possibility or a scope where there are prototype testings? When I mean these could be small interventions at street level scale, or could be some public space design apart from residential buildings or commercial spaces per se. Is there a type in which we can check those impacts through such tools that you're developing? Because it's quite interesting to see what ratings that would it fit in and to analyze the gaps where we can address them.
Yeah. For these large type of projects, as I mentioned, the communities. So
Hmm.
I told about the cities and communities. So it is applicable, for example, Bangalore as a city, it will come under lead for cities, wherein, for example, if you take the entire Bangalore Airport City Limited, adjoining the airport terminal, so they are developing an entire city where they're going to have more of the commercial space plus the retail, hospitality. So all type of mixed use development is going to come up. So for these large developments, at a design stage, they can look at the lead for communities framework. At an operation also, they can look at lead for communities existing. So where at the existing one, they are looking at the same R tool with the extended matrices will be used to measure the performance and get it certified. So these are the two things for a large development you can look at. Hope
Okay,
this
sir,
answers.
absolutely. Yeah, that does answer me. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, so the last question for you, sir. As you know, we have 7 mentorship recipients, and 5 of them are working on private residences. So, should we look at a rating system for such small scale projects?
Yeah, sure. That's what I said. Even if it is a residential, even single family homes, a villa project can also look at, or a high-rise project can be looked at. Even the commercial also, we have a minimum if it is individual building of even 2,000 square feet and above, or even if it is a interior space, we can also, even a smaller size can go for it. So any type of any size of the building can look at a lead at any stage of the either it's a construction or an operation or interior fit outs. So you have lead applicability over there.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thanks for this. Thanks for the time, and thanks, madam, for this opportunity given to us.
thank you, sir. So next we will move on to the next lecture. Next we have architect Abhishek Jain from EDS. He will take us through the approach of designing for sustainability. Architect Abhishek Jain is a sustainability expert with 16 plus years of experience in green building design, energy efficiency, and decarbonization. He is a senior associate at EDS. He leads LEED and GRIHA certifications, net zero strategies, and climate responsive architecture. Today, he will discuss the importance of creating energy efficient, eco friendly buildings, even outside of formal certification systems, and explore the crucial deliberations when it comes to sustainable design. Over to you, Abhishek, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ankita. I'll just share my screen. Just a minute. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Yeah. So, in this session, we will have a basic overview of various green building certification programs in India. And because this session is intended for architects, so we'll be discussing what are the specific roles of an architect in any certification or a green building design process. So here we'll discuss both if a project is intending to go for any certification, what are the steps to be taken, and otherwise also what is critical to achieve a green or sustainable building. I'll just quickly give you a brief about the organization. So I'm representing Environmental Design Solutions. It's a global design, sustainable built environment design advisory firm, which was established in the year 2003. We are a team of 95 plus professionals working in the field of sustainable built environment, and globally we have completed over 600 projects. Now, let's look at green building certifications in India. So in India, there are international certification like LEED, which was covered in the previous session by Raman. And then there is other rating program which is widely used, which is EDGE. EDGE is Efficiency for Greater Design. This is a certification program developed by International Finance Corporation, which is a subset under the World Bank Group. And then we have Indian certification programs, uh, uh, which is the first one being the Indian Green Building Council offered programs. So this is certification institute which is under the umbrella of Confederation of Indian Industries and have various certification programs for different building typologies. Then we have a GRIHA certification program, again an Indian certification program under developed by Terry and addresses various building typologies from the smallest building types to some of the largest campuses. And we have the GEM certification, which is being developed by ASSOCHAM. Now, these are a few certification programs which talk about resource efficiency. But apart from that, there are other certifications in built environment, which are also being currently being pursued by various projects. So we have a certification program called WELL. WELL is offered by International Wellbeing Institute, and this certification program only addresses issues which impact health and well-being of occupants. So there are 10 impact categories under the WELL program, which includes things like mind, wellness, health, food, uh, and then there are frameworks how built environment addresses those issues. And then we have certification program called True. True talks about waste management and how built environment can be enabled and designed to ensure that there is a minimum waste generation and ensuring that waste generation from the built environment does not end into a landfill site. So these are the major certification categories which are used by buildings in various capacities in India. Now, all of these uh, certification program offer adaptations which are applicable for various building types. So starting with new construction. So new construction, we have different building typologies and each building have different functional and operational requirements. So these certification programs are tailored to address those differences between the building typologies. So we have adaptations which address office buildings. Office buildings are typically of two types. One is occupied by the developer himself, and the second office building types are office which are built to be leased out. So there are different controls available in the building, and then there are certification programs which addresses the difference on those controls. Then the programs offer is specific needs of schools, retail buildings, data centers, warehouse and distribution centers, hospitality, healthcare. There are programs for public transport systems like metros. Then we have a certification program for interior fit out. So supposedly somebody leases out a building and does the interior fit out. So how he can do the fit outs in a more sustainable way. So there are certification frameworks which enable a user to select that framework and do the fit out in a sustainable way. And all the rating programs which we discussed in the previous slide have some or other adaptations to meet this need. Then there are specific rating programs for residential buildings. So residential buildings also have various variations in the way they are built and used. So we have single family homes and then we have multi-family homes. Even in single family or multi-family homes, where we have houses which are of different categories. So we have houses which are for economically weaker sections. We have houses for middle income section. We have luxury homes. So there are different certification programs which addresses each of these building types. So, for example, GRIHA has a certification program called affordable housing. So GRIHA for affordable housing is a certification program which addresses specific needs for affordable housing. LEAD has a program called LEAD for residential. So it addresses single family home types. Then the next adaptation is applicable for very large developments. So we have certification programs which addresses large developments like campuses, communities, cities. And last, we have certification programs for existing buildings and also looking at net zero uh, compliance and approach for these building typologies, which was covered by Raman in the previous slide. So when we look at a new building development, there are various phases at which architect or the various stakeholders which are responsible for that development have to take decisions which impact the final outcome of the project. So these stages can broadly be broken up into four broad phases. The first one being pre-design stage, where a site is selected, the program is designed, whether what is to be developed in that particular site, whether it is an office, a hotel, or a mall, or a metro station. Then comes the second stage, and once we have decided upon what is the development typology is, then we get into the design stage where we do the schematic design, concept design, and detailed design. Once this is done, we get into construction stage where we have tendering processes and then the construction starts. Once the construction is complete, we have post completion, and in case we are taking a certification, we have the certification work. Now, what any certification program does is it forces the certification or the stakeholders in a project to look at integrative design. Now, what is integrative design? So every project or site, when we consider, uh, is bounded by various constraints which are there under the development. Those constraints can be in terms of the habitat or the location of the site. So there can be constraints like the climatic condition in which the site is, what are the resources available in terms of water, material, energy. Then there may be constraints like what is the budget in which the construction has to happen. What are the timelines within which this development has to be taken up. Now, uh, what an integrative process or adopting any certification framework does to this is that you have to look at all of these constraints in totality in a holistic way at each step of the design discovery, which is pre-design stage, as well as design and construction stage, and also continuously do value optimization at each and every step, which is very different from a traditional process where every aspect is addressed in silos, and hence the design or the final outcome is not as efficient as it would have been if the project has followed an integrative process. So typically all the certification program enables that the final outcome is a product or a design or a building typology which addresses the interdependencies between all of these constraints or opportunities which are available on the site. Now, what it does is it enables everybody engaging every issue early in the project. So, when we look at or take a certification from framework, it will say that post occupancy, we need to have operations and maintenance protocol. So, right from day one, you will be made aware that you have to address it at the completion of the project, and hence you have to enable the design so that those features are integrated as a part of technical specification and design development so that you can meet those compliances later at the design stage. Certification program also go into detail of looking at what will be the kind of chemicals which will be used post construction or during the operations of the building, and how the building will be operated, managed, monitored. So all of those issues, the designer and the project team are forced to look at the very early design stage. And when we look at all the team which is involved in any design process, this can be a small team depending upon the scale of project, where only the architect or the designer, the contractor, and the end owner is involved in the process. Whereas it can be as large as there are multiple specialists coming into the project depending upon the complexity. And all of these stakeholders are required to interact in various capacities at various stages of the design development as well as the construction process. Now, in the coming slides, we'll discuss that what are the key responsibilities of an architect to look at various stages with respect to a certification framework. So, first, let's discuss what should be considered during the pre-design stage. So, when we look at a pre-design stage, the first step for any project is to define its sustainability vision, goals, and objectives. So, this is the first step to start with. And this starts even before you select a site or the moment you have a site in hand. After that, it's required to coordinate with clients and consultants on the certification goals, depending upon how many stakeholders are engaged or required for development of that project. Then comes integrating sustainability principle into early design decisions, selecting appropriate green building certification via comparative analysis. So at the pre-design stage only, a project can choose whether they want to take a IGBC certification or a LEED certification or a GRIHA certification based on various pros and cons which are available for the project, as well as the applicability of the selected framework. So those decisions can be taken at the pre-design stage. And then also at times, if you have an opportunity of selecting between multiple sites, you can select a site which aligns more with the sustainability principle desired for the sustainability vision and objectives of the proposed development. Next comes the project concept design. So at the concept design, uh, the designer can look at developing passive design strategies, which will include things like proper orientation of the building, ensuring there is adequate daylighting, shading, and ventilation. And related strategies are part of the design approach for the project. It is also important to look at preliminary assessment of materials, energy, and water efficiency at that stage, so that those linkages can be built into the project design. These may include issues which impact rainwater harvesting, water recycling, low carbon materials, recycled materials. So use and integration of those aspects at that stage. Then comes collaboration with various specialists which come on board for development of the project. So those can include structural designer, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing designers, and other stakeholders, and ensuring that they are aware of the efficiency goals which are targeted for the project. Those efficiency goals can be related to how the building envelope should be looked at, what should be the air conditioning system, what should be the lighting system, whether we want to integrate renewable energy into the project or not, water efficiency, and all the correlated aspects. After that, we ensure that the preliminary design aligns with the certification requirement as well as along with the budgetary provision. So we should ensure that whatever is the proposed budget, the design responds to that budgetary provisions, and those are addressed as a part of the concept design. And then we document, so we create initial sustainability reports and strategies for proper alignment to the goals. This can also be followed by carrying project registration, as Raman has earlier also stressed upon that project registration or initiation of certification program can be taken up at the concept design stage. So the design team can also initiate this registration for the selected certification program. Next comes the detailed design stage. At this stage, we have to ensure that all the sustainable strategies which have been finalized as a part of concept design are integrated into the final design, which may include things like adequate space provision. Those space provision can be space provision for a shading device, or a space provision for a physically challenged toilet, or a space provision for a central waste management room. And also looking at the specification provision. So whether you want to have the building insulated by putting insulation, what kind of roof system you want to have in. So all of those aspects have to be addressed as a part of final design document. Then we also look at validating the material selection for eco-friendliness and energy efficiency. After that, the next important step at detailed design stage is to coordinate with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing consultant for looking at energy and water efficiency goals. And those are integrated as a part of the details design. It's also an important aspect to ensure that all the technical drawings which are developed for the sake of construction, they comply with the selected certification requirement. So those checks and balances have to be ensured at the detailed design stage. Uh, then all of these drawings are also supplemented with various technical specifications for materials, for equipments, for systems, what brand or what model or make of equipments are required to be pulled in. So those documentation and looking at efficiency parameters for those have to be ensured. Uh, and at this stage also, a project can also look at the pre-certification. So most of these rating programs also offer an opportunity to pre-certify the buildings based on the design intent and goals of the project. So at the detailed design stage, project can also opt for taking a pre-certification from the selected certification body, or also do a design submission for certification. So once the detailed design is complete, the project can also do a design submissions to the certification body and get a pre-approval on the design intent for the project. Next comes the tendering and contractor onboarding stage. So at this moment, it's more on ensuring that the specifications for sustainable design and efficiency uh, are incorporated as a part of the construction documents, as well as ensuring that the construction practices which the contractor is going to follow, those requirements are also built into the tender specification. Uh, the second important aspect is the contractor selection is also aligned with the sustainability goals of the project. So to ensure that the contractor understands that what is required to achieve the sustainability related goals for the project, and he has an understanding and capability to deliver those, to deliberate upon that. At this stage, it's also important to develop compliance checks for sustainability measures. So, various checks for ensuring that the contractor is made responsible to address measures which are required to be taken up at various times of procurement and construction for the project. So these may include what should be the check to be done when you select the cement for low embodied carbon selection of materials, or looking at the flow rates which are required to be looked at once the contractor is procuring toilet fixtures for the project, or the kind of lighting system a contractor is procuring, because the contractor will be taking various decisions at various course of the time. So to ensure that whenever those decisions are required to be taken, there is a check available to ensure that those decisions aligns with the sustainability goals of the project. Sorry. Do we have any questions?
No, sir. I think it is by mistake. You can
Okay.
continue.
Yeah. And then followed by that, we can look at the competing parties' proposals and their alignment with the certification goal, so that the construction can be started with these checks and balances in place. Next comes the construction stage. At this stage, an architect can monitor on-site implementation of sustainable practice. So whatever is designed and built into the tenders is actually executed on the site. So there can be regular checks and balances for monitoring of that. Uh, it is required to ensure that the material selection aligns with the certification requirements. So whatever is spelled out in the construction documents is actually executed. So those verification and insurance is required. Then also coordination for contractors for waste management strategies. So a lot of waste is generated during construction of any project. And waste management is also addressed as a key aspect in various certification program. So looking at those strategies, conducting site audits for adherence to green building guidelines. So these can be taken up at various stages of construction, and also enabling the contractor to support real-time documentation for sustainable practices. So one of the very important aspect of taking any certification framework is documentation. And we have to ensure that those documentations are being taken at various stages of design and construction process. Those documentation can be of various typologies. Those documentation can be in terms of the drawings which are being prepared, the design brief reports which are being prepared during the pre-design stage, the tender and construction documents. Then we have photographic evidences for on during construction practices which are being taken up. And then there can be documentation in terms of purchase orders and technical specifications for the materials and equipments which goes into the building. So ensuring that real-time documentation of all the aspects which are required to be captured as a part of any certification framework are taken up during the construction stage. And last comes the post-construction stage. Here, it is required to ensure that the commissioning and testing of equipments which are installed in the project, they are being done in compliance to the sustainability goals of the project and the certification framework which the project is following. Uh, it is also very important to educate the occupants on the sustainability features and best practices. So there are cases where the design decisions and the sustainability vision is set by a team, and the occupiers are a totally different end user, which is not part of the team which has developed or executed the construction. So it is very important to pass the knowledge on what is desired output of the project and how the building can be operated and managed to ensure that those outcomes are achieved. And in terms of the certification compliance for post-construction stage, we ensure that all the submission for the necessary documentation as required for final certification are in place and are submitted in the requested format to the respective certification body. And then post-construction, we can look at post-occupancy performance for continuous improvement on the project, and also support in post-certification evaluation and reporting. So in short, when we look at the approach, we have to start with a sustainability workshop at the very initial stage. We do design reviews to look at concept design and final design, where we take help of various tools and approaches to look at, say, energy modeling and various codal compliance, looking at and quantifying percentages savings with reference to any certification standard like an ASHRAE standard, looking at ventilation design, daylighting design, carrying out certification feasibility. So these are some of the steps which are taken at the design stage. At tender evaluation, you look at material, product alignment, vendor documentation, and various tasks which the vendor or the contractor is required to execute. At project execution, you look at on-site orientation for the contractor, looking at LEED or WELL or GRIHA or IGBC, whatever certification program is opted for, documentation for that, continuous data collection and tracking, and review of commissioning activities. And post this, there is a task for communication reporting, where communications with respect to the certification as well as the project achievement summary and post occupancy reporting of performance can be taken up. So this broadly sums up role of an architect at various stages of construction, which include integrating sustainability from conceptualization, collaborating with consultants, engineers, contractors, and the owners to achieve the sustainability vision which is set for the project, ensuring compliance with the certification requirements, and then educating clients and stakeholders on sustainability benefits. So these are the broad four areas to be taken care when we look at an architect's role in a green certification framework adoption for any construction project. So with this, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you so much. I'm open to take any questions.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thanks a lot. If there are any questions, can the participants please type them in? Ankita, you can take the discussion forward.
Yeah. We have a question. Can you suggest 1 minute? Yeah, can you suggest how to select the most accurate rating system in respect of with factors for comparison for the project? And uh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it, sorry. Yeah.
So, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when we look at any certification program, certification framework offer a third-party benchmarking of the performance of the project. Now, when we select a certification system, we have to look at why we are opting for a particular benchmark and to whom those benchmarks or comparison are important to. So, for example, if a project is required to attract international clientele, so they can look at a global certification program like a LEED or EDGE certification. Apart from that, each certification program has specific sustainability goals and performances. So those also becomes a critical factor to be considered when we select a certification program. And lastly, there are various government incentives available at various municipalities for specific certification program. So that also becomes a factor when you select a certification program. So, for example, a particular municipality may give additional FAR benefit for a few certification programs. So that becomes an obvious choice if you want to encash or take benefit of those incentives available in for a project. Uh, and lastly, some certification programs are also looked at for marketing needs for a project. So specifically, projects which are being developed by a developer, he may select a certification program to enable or increase the marketing bandwidth for the project. So these are some of the factors which can be considered when you select any certification program.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Aditya?
Yeah, it did answer. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have from Bhagya Lakshmi. Can you suggest cost-effective methods for achieving points related to energy, water, or materials in the chosen green rating system? Can you provide examples of innovative green building features that consistently score well in green rating systems?
Yeah. So when we look at cost is very subjective uh, uh, and has to be looked at in terms of what is required to be built in. So, for example, if I am building a affordable housing, so then each material selection becomes very critical because the product is being made for a very low price point sale. But if the same architect is designing a five-star hotel, then the base specifications are so high that it may be there should be no incremental cost to achieve a sustainable building because you already are doing so much in the project. So the cost effectiveness will depend upon what is the typology of the project and what is the base cost available for the design. But when we look at the cost optimization, we should not look at the first cost as or the capex which is required to be built into the project. We should look at life cycle cost. So, for example, if I have to select a fan in an office building, so a conventional fan may cost me probably 1,000 rupees cheaper than a brushless DC motor based fan. But a brushless DC motor fan will save adequate amount of electricity, which will offset the differential cost within an year of operation. So uh, looking at life cycle cost is a better approach in terms of cost effectiveness for a project, and we have to look at an integrative cost approach where providing insulation may help to reduce the air conditioning load, and hence you may be required to put a lower size of air conditioning system. So an integrative, so we a project may choose to uh, increase the cost of building envelope, but then reduce the cost of air conditioning system. So those optionalities are also available when we look at cost optimization for a project.
Okay, we have a lot many questions for you, sir. So we will request you to please be with us. We
Yeah,
will
sure.
take more questions after Tanuja ma'am's session.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yes. I would like to welcome Tanuja ma'am. Hello, ma'am. I will just give a quick introduction and then you can begin with your presentation. Um, we have Tanuja ma'am joining us. She will demonstrate through a case study on a GRIHA rated project. She is a partner at Kanvinde, Rai and Chaudhary in New Delhi. She has been mentored by modern masters like Padalkar, Joseph Allenstein, Morid Chaudhary, and Achyut Kanvinde. She is a graduate of UVCE, Bangalore, and a fellow of the IIA. She's also a visiting professor at SPA Delhi for over 2 decades. She has also served on national design juries and as a guest speaker at various forums. She has significantly contributed to the profession, and today she will discuss a case study that will highlight the practical implementation of sustainable design within an academic setting, providing valuable insights into the challenges faced and solutions implemented in a high performance project. I would now like to request Tanuja ma'am to take over the screen.
Morning. A good day, actually. It's no longer morning. Can you all see the screen? Are you able to
Yes,
see
ma'am.
the screen?
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Yeah, okay. So this is a project which we had done at IIT Kanpur. And I think it was in the nascent stages when rating systems had just come in. We had only a few buildings in the country which were rated. The rating systems were also evolving. This is at IIT Kanpur. So we had a wonderful promoter associated with this, Arun Shourie, who actually wanted to give his MP Lads fund to an institute and not really kind of give it in piecemeal, but he wanted to give the entire sum for the term to an institute to bring something meaningful. So under his leadership, we had actually put up one building already at the IIT Kanpur, where we had only done an energy evaluation. So for the second term, when he got the funds, he actually took a approval from the government to again give it back to the institute. And this time, the institute as well as the promoter decided to go in for a rating because they thought just evaluating a project was not good enough. And we needed to look at, the rating system and how the building performs, etc. And also, in a way, it was demonstrative for a larger, uh, you know, on a larger scale because this was a government project. So it would also kind of pave the way for the government to go ahead because those were the days when there was this misnomer that uh, energy efficient buildings or sustainable buildings or rated buildings would be far more expensive to build. And in a way, this also was an attempt to look at all of that and take it forward. A quick look at the context where it was put up. This is the IIT Kanpur concept plan. In an initial drawing which was done by Mr. Kanvinde. So you can see that there were some road network which was existing, some existing trees which were marked. And then out of that came the academic core. Can you see my cursor moving? Yes? Okay. So the academic core was located and the housing was around it. The hostels were adjoining it. And then there was also a residential quarter for the class 4 staff, community facilities, and some expansion which was provided. That's basically where the north is. This is way back in 59. So if you look at this image, this basically looks at the academic core itself. This square that you see where there are buildings highlighted. These are some of the landmark buildings, the images which are alongside the screen. The library, the faculty building, the Southern Labs, the faculty block, etc. All of which were in a walkable square, which was 500 meters by 500 meters. This is basically the premise on which the campus was designed, that it would be walkable in the academic area, and the hostels were also adjoining, and they would be in the reach. What you see here is a larger master plan for it, which we had kind of given a proposal for. So you see the 500 by 500, which kind of, because of the growth of the institute over 40 odd years, finally there was a need to look at expansion and a kind of a planned expansion. So the academic, which is shown in the blue, we had indicated that it would extend towards the north, and along with it, there were some pockets of green which were also identified. That's overall site plan. I'm not really getting into the details of all of the rest, but there are, along the boundary and along the periphery, there are villages which had then come up and grown. There was pressure on land, etc., etc. So when this proposal came up on where we should site this building, which is the Environment Science building, the debate was with the institute on where to locate it. The institute, I must say, was very open to these discussions. The director was a design professional himself, and that made a huge difference, Professor Dande. So if you look at the left, the plan on the left, what you see is essentially the environment science building, the bioscience building, which is on the left-hand corner, which was the first building which we had done where the energy evaluation was done. So there were some learnings from this which we had carried on to the next. But as you can see, there was no really area left to put into that 500 by 500 square. We needed to just step out. Because it was meant for environmental science, the institute also relaxed its reservations on it. And there is a nursery that you can see with dense trees, full-grown mature trees. There was a little area which was carved out and given to environmental science building, because it was felt by everybody that it would be appropriate to set it in a natural setting. What you see are the initial images when we went. You have on the right, Professor Dande, who was then the director, Mr. Arun Shori. So this is really an initial meeting on site, back of an envelope. Everybody is a designer. So we had inputs from the promoter, the client, and ourselves, and of course the nursery in charge, because it was after all his land, which was very close to him. So everyone had a little bit of a input, and there was the sketch which came up. This is what the image was like. There were two clusters of bamboo, full-grown bamboo trees, which you see on the top right, and there were some other mature trees on the side. So I'm just showing these visuals because this is how the site was. And obviously it was a dilemma on how to build. So the first thing that we did was also to get a survey, a good survey done to identify the trees, to identify the girths, etc., which is very critical when you're doing. So since had already kind of embarked on the design of this building with the knowledge that we will go in for rating, there were some of these measures which were already kind of put in place. So the contours were drawn up, the trees were mapped, the lines, the stormwater lines, etc., on the larger extent of the campus was kind of looked at, because this was a low-lying area. The campus was kind of sloping towards this. So it wasn't just the immediate contour, but it was about what was happening on the larger context. This was one of the initial sketches that we did, because there were two other buildings which were also to come along this parcel of land. There was something which was for the aerospace engineering and a design school. So again, initial sketch that one looked at, and then we looked at designing itself. So the brief was, I think I missed the brief. The brief was for about 10 laboratories. Maybe I don't have it. I won't go back to the image, but I'll just tell you. It was for laboratories, about 10 of them, dealing with environmental science engineering. All of them were not air conditioned. So about 50% of the labs were to be air conditioned, 50% were not. The faculty rooms, they wanted not along with the laboratories, but they wanted them as a separate cluster. These were all inputs that we had got from the user group, which obviously is a great help when you're designing. So as a designer, you have to ask the questions which are relevant, as well as kind of prompt them to think and pen down what they really require. There were classrooms. There was a laboratory which was supposed to generate a lot of vibration, so that couldn't be part of the whole building. We needed to kind of segregate it from the rest of it. So we started with mapping the existing trees. So what you see as a lighter green are the trees which were all existing. This large cluster that you see are the bamboo cluster that you had seen in the picture earlier. And this, from the contour, this became like a low-lying area. Not too much, it was about a meter difference. So we made a first proposal where we kind of respected the trees around. So the shape of the building kind of took, what prompted what the site prompted us to do, meaning so the trees were kind of preserved, and weaving around the trees, the clusters came up. It was obviously a modular structure that we resorted to. And because the labs were supposed to be air conditioned and non-air conditioned, we looked at the options of locating the non-air conditioned on the ground floor and the air conditioned ones on the upper floor, and then having a second roof on top to cut down the heat. So this is the basic plan that you see. So you can see cluster of tree on the right where we had to compromise a little bit. Set back the building here because right at the entrance where we thought we could take the entrance, there was a large tree. Similarly, in the inner courts, there were a couple of trees. Then there was a tree which was outside of this where we decided to locate the laboratory which needed to be isolated. So that's what you see on the right, at the bottom right is what we envisaged as a section. So what we had decided, of course, was to not go up more than ground in one, so that whatever is the development which comes in here gets nestled in the tree crop itself and it doesn't stick up. So that was one of the premise that we had worked on. So if you look at this very small building structure, it is about 5,000 because obviously it was limited to what the fund could afford. So it was about 5,000 meters squared in all. And one of the things that we had to do was, it's a campus. Within the campus, there are no boundary walls really. So because we had to go in for a rating, we had to determine a plot area, because that plot area is kind of important to how you kind of treat it through the construction, etc. So a piece of land was earmarked right up front. And within that, one kind of did a fencing and secured the extent of the site. So what you see on the right, 10 laboratories, 18 faculty rooms, 4 meeting rooms, a library, seminar hall of 100 capacity, classrooms of varying capacities, an exhibition area, and then the amphitheater, which one kind of developed along with the landscape, and the courtyards themselves. So because this is a residential campus, we did not really have too much parking to contend with. A lot of them use cycles. In fact, on the campus, students are not supposed to be using anything else other than cycles now. So it's only the faculty which comes in with vehicles. So we kept the vehicular access to the minimal, just an entry, as you can see, and parking. And then under the bamboo grove, we had the cycle parking. Then we also located the water body in the site, which was the lowest point, which collected water not from only our site and the roof, but also from the adjoining areas. Then we had the modules which were clustered together. And from the last learning, we had also looked at the possibility of having a earth air tunnel. Being on a campus, land is not really an issue. So we did have that area available and we decided to use the earth air tunnel. So that was also kind of sited appropriately into the building. And this is broadly what you look at. Orientation of the building was kind of very critical. So these are all things which you build into your design, knowingly, unknowingly, or you program your mind accordingly, whatever you want to call it, but that's how it is. And then giving a certain transparency. After all, it's an education institution. So that was, for us, a plus point, not a corporate office where everything is air conditioned. So we needed to look at the possibility of, merging the open space, bringing the outside air in a way, cooling it, through all of that. So what you see in this image is basically the entrance area of the department. And what you see beyond is an exhibition area, which is again an open one. So the intention was that any new developments in the field of environment science would be exhibited there. And the students in their process of moving in and moving out would encounter this. It also became like a place for discussions and meetings. On the roof, you see that basically we had used some kind of a shading device, again, because it's in Kanpur, a very hot climate, and you need, kind of protection from the sun. Here where you see a clear story light, basically that became like a, air vent. It became like a stack effect. The hot air would rise up and it would get discharged through these ventilators on top, but also have the light come down along the corridors. I've already mentioned about using the modules. We were also looking at, so what you see here on the in the image, you see the way we had to actually push the building back. The lab had to be cut back a little bit because the tree outcrop is substantial. And in order to save the tree, we just took the structure along, but didn't put the whole building through. So the lab became a little compromised. But, for all of this, there were discussions along with the clients. We took the clients along in each of these iterations. This is one of the views of the internal court, the open corridor which connects up at the upper level. The services, of course, being a laboratory, it was service intense. So we actually looked at the possibility of carrying the services along the corridor, which is basically where the movement happened, easy to access. And then it just reached onto the labs, just alongside. So it was about not really having your services run all over, but strategically kind of getting them closer and easy to maintain and easy access. This is a view of the water body that we looked at, which was also used for air conditioning, air cooling. This is the little lab that we kind of stretched out. So the stilted areas and the semi-covered spaces. So in this image in the bottom right, if you look at that, which is the site plan, you have the northwesterly winds which come through over the water and into the building. So there are these open spaces which were created on the ground floors as tilted spaces. The cool air in the summer months would come through that into this, and then the corridor was basically open. The labs were separated out with the corridor just moving in between it. So the cool air would move through, rise up to the upper floors, and then get discharged from the roof. I mean, from the skylight, that ventilator that we spoke about. So the existing trees which were kind of preserved are the ones which are shown in dark green, which are in close proximity to the building, which are till date. After all these years also, they're doing very well. So it was kind of very looked after through the construction and post that. So one ensured that there was sufficient area around it. One didn't disturb the tree cover or the roots of it. You know, that's a kind of exercise. So though it's not kind of apparent in these, but the visuals kind of show you the manner in which these things were kind of taken into account. Even the water body was shaped so that you could have the trees, which were around. You can see that in the image here. So it wasn't really, it took the shape that the site kind of offered it. The stilted exhibition area I've already spoken about. So this is the skylight that I mentioned. So there were cuts which were provided along on the first floor, linkages into the labs, the light, the window which was onto the labs. So the labs, the dimension of the labs were determined based on the daylight reach. So the depth of the labs were kept to what is most appropriate and optimal for the daylight to reach. So they don't really need to use any kind of artificial lighting through the day. This skylight on the top also brought in the light, which gave in light from the corridor side. So though the lab was abutting the corridor, you got this light from the skylight itself. These are some internal views. So in the design of the labs as well, we looked at module where the electrical and the plumbing services moved along. So we used a structural system where we used a twin beam, and within that we had the plumbing which moved at one level and the dry services which moved along at the lower level, and they could just drop down onto the workbenches. So you kind of had these very earmarked systems in place, which was designed so, but it also gave the flexibility for the lab to function. So this essentially gives you an idea, a larger scale of the section where you're looking at the non-air conditioned spaces, which is shaded yellow. So a large part was non-air conditioned, but it became actually very convenient, and the ambient condition was extremely good for functioning. Then you had the air-conditioned labs, which were sitting on top. You had a secondary roof cover, and then you also looked at the solar panels on top. And in the next image, so what you see on the left is essentially the roof shading. The roof was treated with Coba insulation. We tried very hard to put in. A lot of the government organizations are extremely against putting insulation on the mother slab, because essentially I find that they don't go to the right person and they don't do the execution appropriately. And then when the system fails, they blame the insulation for it. So at every project, it is a huge challenge for us to try and get insulation on top of the mother slab, which is what makes a lot more sense than to do it under deck, because that's only the second step that one would like to do. One would like to arrest the heat right up front. But this was finally finished with China mosaic. So what you see on the left-hand bottom picture is the China mosaic on the roof after the waterproofing, and the bamboo which is covering the roof itself. So because it was raised up, it also gave the department an additional space for interaction. at the roof level. So they could have their meetings, etc. And it was set in the nursery. So already it had a temperature which was much less than the rest of the campus. So it became a good point for interaction spaces. The internal courtyards again were shaded. We used some recycled aluminium, etc. for the louver systems. The structure was built in to take that. This is what I mentioned. The water body is on the left-hand side. There are stilted area, which is put in right next to it. So when the breeze comes through, it moves over the water body and then gets into the inner space and then, kind of dissipates. So that you are creating a microclimate, this is a section through the corridor typically. So you again see the movement of the air, the light coming through and the hot air rising up. And then the corridor that I mentioned where the services moved through consolidated. So the ground floor roof is where we took the services. We would have liked to take it in the basement, but the subsoil water level is also high and the institute was a little bit resistant to it. So we took it in the first floor slab. So you could afford to have a little lesser height there and all the services moved through. That's a typical lab layout. So what I mentioned about the services running through, essentially we had created these cores right at the end. So, when you're looking at a sustainable building, I think it's not just about other features. It's also about creating a system which is efficient for the people to use. Only then things do work out. So these are the service shafts, which one had looked at. The wet services kind of were on the outside, easy to access. The labs, and then we provided, because of the earth air tunnel, we managed to actually reduce the AHU size substantially because you were bringing in the outside 40-degree temperature air cooling through the earth air tunnel, bringing it to a 28. So the fresh air input that we were giving into the AHUs was at 28, which made a huge impact on the reduction of the air conditioning load itself for the air conditioning labs. And the AHU sizes were substantially small as a result. If you look at this is basically a landscape drawing which is made. So swales were predominantly used. Pervious paving. So wherever we had the cycle parking, etc., it was basically on a, paver grass. So this is the tunnel that I spoke about. You see these purple lines which are coming through. So that's about roughly 80 meters. For this, we had worked out what the requirement of fresh air was. We needed 2 earth air tunnels to be put in. So we took it both the ends of the building, brought them into a air handling unit, and then supplied it into the AHU. So the red arrows that you see are where it's feeding into each of the labs. What you see at the bottom right hand is really the earth air tunnel at the mouth. So all you see at the ground is really a structure which is as small as that. And what you see at the top is a section which is through. So you bring in the ambient air, move it down through at a depth of about 4 meters. So the diameter, etc., of these pipes were calculated by the experts, and then it gets into the AHU. So that's broadly what was used. So wherever there is a possibility, I would still like to use all of that. Earth air tunnel is a very good way of cutting down the load on the air conditioning because that's really a large guzzler. And then, we had also looked at wherever the services were running, we had kind of segregated. So the water supply, the wet services were running onto one side of the street and the dry ones were running on one side of the street. These all like just basic, which I guess every designer kind of takes into account, but that's just what one had done. And then this is a detailed cross section where again you see the services which are moving, the cable trays, the chilled water supply, the air-cooled ducts, and then finally coming into the AHU, which I said is outside of the lab, so that when anybody comes in, so on the left, what you see here, that is really the cabinet, the AHU cabinet. So anybody coming to attend to it doesn't really have to step into the laboratory. Some of these laboratories do very sensitive work and they need to be sterile. So they really didn't want any technicians, etc., coming in, attending to the AHUs and things like that. So that's why this is all kind of designed to keep outside. So it's, of course, a whole team of consultants who also work along. So primarily, when you're designing any of these things, I feel the site and how you look at the site is very, very important. And taking what the site has to offer you into your design becomes a very integral part. Of course, we all have to provide for, the client's brief. But along with it, then you also see what is the appropriate technology that one can bring in as a designer, which can make your building sustainable, which can make your building more green. Of course, cost is a consideration one needs to weigh at each times. I just stepped in, I logged in just as a colleague was mentioning about you decide on what rating system to use depending on the kind of building you're doing. And that's absolutely true. So in this building, like I mentioned, it was in the nascent stages and we had opted to go in for GRIHA rating. And even today, I would any day go in for GRIHA rating because I think it's far more India friendly, far more friendly to what we have as a reality. Of course, other rating systems have also changed their norms since, and they've also adapted to whatever is the predominant conditions that we are facing in our building industry. So this is, and the consultants play a major role because what you see here is not just a architect's input, but it is also largely to do with energy and water and landscape, and all of this which play a huge role in how your building behaves and how it's rated. So a quick look at what we had put in. So if you see this essentially talks about the number of points which are given. So site planning is about, so on for GRIHA, it is 100-point rates. I mean, on the rating system, it's 100 points which are given. And based on 50 plus, 60 plus, whatever, they have the rating. I think you've already gone through all of this. Up to the 5-star, which is the highest rating that one is awarded. So site planning carries 1/5, 20 points, which is for site planning, which essentially takes into account preserve and protect landscape during construction. So which means any trees which are existing, etc., have to be protected properly. Soil conservation, the topsoil has to be removed carefully. It has to be preserved. It has to be spread over appropriately and cultivated and then brought back, designed to include existing site features, reduce the hard paving on site, enhance outdoor lighting system efficiency, and plan utilities efficiently, and optimize on-site circulation efficiently. So I've mentioned how utilities clubbing them together makes a lot more logic rather than, so it means that you need to plan. You need on a smaller project, maybe not so much. On a larger project, you do need to look at how to kind of club the utilities together so you're not digging the site all over and, ruining it. A classic example is what happens on the streets of Delhi. You barely do it and then somebody else comes and rips it open because they need access for something else. So you need to kind of really plan it appropriately. Then you're looking at 16 points, which is allotted for health and well-being, which essentially talks about use of materials, taking care of the construction workers, reducing air pollution during the construction, use of low VOC paints, ensuring the water quality, reducing the indoor noise levels and outdoor, etc. Then you're looking at conservation and efficient utilization of resource and water. This is 13 points, which is allotted. So whatever you use as landscape needs to be, the plants that you use, the plants that you plant need to be indigenous. Then you're reducing the water use in the building, so you're using it efficient systems. Toilet fixtures are sensor operated. Then during the construction as well, you're looking at efficient ways of watering, because obviously we need to water, etc. So how you do that, and then eventually the water recycle and reuse, which forms a very integral part of any building that you design now. So you look at the gray water and how you get it back into the system and all of that. Energy carries 40 points, which is, 37 points, which is almost like, 2/5 of the entire point rating system. So that basically covers all your air conditioning and the lighting, hot water requirement. So depending on the type of building that you're doing, all of these carry, various ratings, various points. But what I'm wanting to say is essentially, if you do a building which is passively designed sufficiently, I think a lot other things fall in place very easily. So it's very important for you to look at materials, use of materials, and use of materials which are predominant to the region. That plays a huge role. Orientation plays a huge role. The amount of glass that you put in plays a role. How you shape the glass plays a role. And of course, use of the appropriate kind of glass, because now there is a possibility to use all kinds of glass. So the use of glass also plays a role. So in the building that I showed, we used DGUs with a low E coating, which actually helped cut down the heat intake into the buildings substantially. We used cavity walls with insulation in the areas which was air conditioned, and just a plain cavity for the areas which are non-air conditioned. Then 8 points are for the waste management, and then building operation and maintenance is 2. And then there is bonus points, which is 4, which essentially is about how you disseminate this information and how you kind of let, any other initiatives that the building that you eventually put up can help to kind of promote this whole aspect of green. So the total number of points which are allotted are 100. So that's basically what we went through. So waste management is a huge component as well of the, these are some views of the building. And so where we lost out, I think I've missed the slide on which it's shown the points that we received. So we got 94 points out of the 100, and the 6 points that we lost were on the energy segment, because everything we could not really attempt. So again, when there is a 100-point system which is there, you can't attempt everything. There was no RMC at that point there. And use of fly ash, of course we use, but I didn't want to use fly ash in the structure, but we use fly ash in the plaster and in the masonry itself. Then at the end of the whole thing, we had various, we kind of walked that extra mile. There were brochures which were printed with the features on what the building offered. There was a film which we got made at our own initiative, meaning when I say our, it's basically the practice kind of took the initiative. It was a film by Asim Waqif. This is before he became an artist, an architect when he was still teaching as an architect. It was about the making of a green building, which took the perspective from the point of view of the client, of the contractor, of a labor, of an architect, of Terry, who did the energy evaluation for us. So it brought in different viewpoints, and it was important for us to do that because it was important to demystify this whole aspect of what is a green building and how a green building is something which all of us are trained to do, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. And all of us can actually make green buildings all the time. Every building doesn't need to go in for rating, but I think the learnings that we have from one building, we need to take it on to the other. It is important to quantify what we do. So, of course, it's important to go in for the rating, but I know it's kind of too much to do it for every building, but it's good. And then when the building got finished, we also I curated a seminar, which was a day-long seminar on sustainability and green initiatives, which brought in all the architects and designers who had been doing green work. I mean, sustainable work. We had people like Dr. Vinod Gupta, Ashok Lal, and a lot of others from the field who spoke about their various green initiatives. And then to the seminar was invited a lot of the government institutes and their works departments. And I think, if I'm not wrong, this was the first 5-star GRIHA rated building. And post that, it was made mandatory for all the government buildings to have at least a 3-star GRIHA rating. Meaning, so it was a huge boost, I think, also for GRIHA and Terry to promote, the scale of the building was small enough for it to be demonstrative, and they could use the learnings from this. So a lot of people did visit, and the building kind of got a whole lot of awards, etc. So that's where the journey finished. The building is functioning fairly well even till date. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was very detailed and very well explained. And also, the works of your firm are known to be very exceptional, and the details shared about the 5-star rating are like really, really great. I would now like to thank all our speakers for their insightful presentations. We have covered a lot of ground today, and it's clear that sustainable design is not just a trend, but an ongoing movement that requires innovation, dedication, and collaboration. With that being said, we will now open floor for the Q&A session. I would like to request all the participants to write their questions in the chat box, or if you wish to answer, you can turn on your videos and ask your questions to both Abhishek sir and Tanuja ma'am. We have a few more questions from before. I will start with that. Meanwhile, others can write their questions. We have one question, Abhishek sir, about what details can we include in the design brief reports at the various stages of a project timeline?
Yeah, so design briefs are typically done at the very start of design development, and those typically include the performance which is desired out of the proposed design. So, for example, a design brief report for an air conditioning design will include what is the kind of aspects which are covered to arrive at the air conditioning design parameters, and we have to ensure that those aspects, when those considerations are made, the corresponding energy efficiency aspects and impact of those parameters are captured in the design brief report. So this has to be done for all the respective design streams, whether it is electrical design, plumbing design, structure design. Every design has a design brief report, and respective environmental parameter are required to be captured at that moment.
Okay. We next have from Shriya Boats. They're asking if they were to convince their client to take a certification. So, what can they suggest as advantages of having a rated building? Because they will have to spend money to fund it.
Right. Yeah, so this is little tricky because ultimately certification program, as I earlier also said, that this is a third party framework and validation for whatever the project team and the client is desired to achieve of the project. So ultimately, what it boils down to is uh, how the client wants to take benefit of that certification program. This can be for marketing needs, this can be for government incentives, this can be just for validation of whatever they have done. So I can say that I have made my green building green. But if I get a certification from third party, then it is easier to communicate the measures which have been taken to ensure the various aspects of sustainability incorporated into the building design. So communication also becomes one important aspect to to which can be made the client aware to make him take a certification program.
Okay. This is for Tanuja ma'am. This is by Shriya Boats. They are saying the slides were very informative and the explanation was very clear. The other one is for ma'am as well. Are there any post-occupancy studies available or a feedback from stakeholders?
No, so there is a post-occupancy evaluation which is always done. The rating system anyway does that. And you need to sustain that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, every 5 years it's done, right? Abhishek, maybe you will be able to.
Yeah. So
So,
typically all the rating program do have a requirement of post occupancy validation, and GRIHA specifically has a separate step in the rating program where we are required to submit post-occupancy audit data to the certification body for validation of whatever has been claimed as a part of design development. Because actual performance only comes once the building starts operational. Prior to that, everything is on papers and on documents. So to validate that what is achieved, all the certification program has a specific requirement of post operational validation.
yeah, and I think one of the questions says, is it a continuous analysis at every stage? Yes. There is there is during construction and post. So during pre-construction, there is also orientation to the contractors, to the clients. So once you register, I'm assuming that if you decide to go in for a rating and you register the project way up, then basically pre-construction itself, the whole process starts. And then you have to also take pictures through the whole construction, document it. So it is a whole voluminous submission. So again, when we did this project, of course, Terry kind of helped, but there's a lot of work that architects have to do to give all these documents. There are technical data sheets that you need to submit of what you use, what you buy, what you integrate in the project.
And we have one more asking about how much is the energy consumption per annum, if you have any idea regarding that.
I think it was about 20% below the benchmark for a thing, but I'm not very clear about it now. I mean, these were done. I'll have to just take out the document and just check. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is about 20%. Yeah.
I see. One more for you, sir. This is from a third year student. They are working on a training research center, green rating system stimulation. So, for their design, they are asking if there are any tips they could use to upgrade their design.
So for to do that, I have to see the design first. Then only I'll be in a position to, so they can connect with me, and then we can have a discussion.
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
sir. We will share the information with them. Um, there is one more. What is the first step to approach or apply for a green rating?
Yeah, the first step is to take a decision to that you want to take a certification, third-party certification, and ensure that the project timelines and budget allocate enable the design to take a certification program, because it also has a dependency on both the timelines of the project. And then the most other important aspect is that why you want to take a certification program. So to take the decision on that, that what you want to achieve by taking a third party certification, whether it is from a IGBC or a GRIHA or a lead. So why you want to choose a particular rating over another rating. So that's the first approach or first step to consider. And once you have decided upon these aspects, you can then proceed with registration and other correlated impact or translation of the certification framework to the proposed project design.
Okay, and thank you, sir. There's one more for Tanuja ma'am. It's from Shriya Boats.
Yeah.
Clerestory windows
Yeah.
with wings.
Basically, if you looked at the section where we had given the clear story window was very easily accessible from the roof, from the terrace. So while it's important to give it and it gives very good light, you also need to have access to keep it clean. So in a lot of these buildings, in any case, the roof was, in our case, we had given the roof as another area, right? It was not an enclosed space, but another space for interaction and all of that. So getting to the roof was easy, and keeping the class clean then became easier.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I understood that through the section.
Yeah.
Uh, Generally, I was just trying to plan it in my building too, and it happened that when we make it very high, uh, for
I know.
especially for old people, it becomes very tough, and then we lose out that opportunity of creating stack effect. And yeah,
No, but I find that in the south, for example, the glass tiles that you get are really wonderful, and it brings in
yes, yes.
beautiful light
Mm,
in the south into the inner spaces.
mm,
That's possible in the hills and things like that as well.
mm.
So, yeah,
Thank you
so,
so much.
basically, how do you go in for a rating? Yes. Uh, in the initial two buildings, I don't think the institute would have gone in for a rating had it not been for the insistence of the promoter. So I give full credit here to Arun Shari sir, because it was him who kind of wanted. So while he gave the first building and we knew it performed well, but there was no documentation, right? So in the second building, he said, no, I want to go in for a rating. So that was the basic difference. So there was somebody who insisted on wanting to do it. So it is hard for an architect to convince. You need, yeah. But it's important to kind of also quantify it, I think, from time to time, because it's not.
There's one more. Any one of you can answer. If one has to work as a green consultant, where one can opt for internships or training programs, if there are any.
Yeah, so we do take interns at our organization. So if there are somebody who's interested can apply at our organization, and there are various other uh, uh, professional firms who work on these fields do employ interns at their organization. You look at those opportunities as well.
There's one more for Tanuja ma'am. I had a sorry. Is it possible to get certified after the project is being completed? And if we miss to register in the beginning?
I think Abhishek, would you like to?
Yeah, I
It is
can take this.
possible,
Yeah,
yeah, but you can.
it is possible. There are certification framework for existing buildings. So if somebody has not registered the project in beginning, the major challenge that particular team will face is documentation, because they may miss out on the early design and construction stage documentation, which will become a challenge or roadblock when you apply for certification for design project. But that project will always have an optionality of taking an certification under the operations and maintenance protocol, where the building is just based on its actual operation and energy data. I think Raman showed a dashboard of Arc platform, which is it's a platform which certifies operational buildings. So buildings which are completed, they get certified over that platform. So uh, that's a possibility. And other certification programs also have that optionality available.
Sir, I had one question. Ankita, can I?
Yes, go on.
Yeah. Sir, actually, my building is of an old age home, and the clients are keen about making it green. So the advantages I see is that maybe it will be helpful to pull in some sponsors if they come to know that it will, like, later also after it is built, if it is rated building, then definitely sponsors will be more, and it'll be easy to convince them. And also it will have a lot of um, like, if they want to make more old age homes, this will help. So um, I just wanted to know the process of initiating it, like how to, like, should we come to some office and apply for it? Because right now it is in the stage of, I mean, the design is done, but we have not started anything yet at site. So we have not touched the site yet.
Okay.
So if we have to go ahead with this, and before I convince the client, I need to know what all has to be told.
Right.
So what is the first step that way?
So one thing is that when you want to take a certification, you have to look at what is the impact of taking that certification in the design, as well as in terms of the budget requirement, because obviously there will be a professional fee charged by the certification body, and
Hmm.
there may be a possibility of a third party professional coming in on board to take the certification process
Right.
forward. So also, when you take a certification, you are pushed to upgrade the building specification. So you may be required to take measures in terms of improving the energy efficiency. So you,
Hmm.
for example, if you want to insulate the walls, so it
Hmm.
has an impact on the overall carpet area available, as well as the
Right.
cost of making insulated wall. Plus, you
Hmm.
have to also look at what will be the operational impact of operating and maintaining that wall. Uh,
Hmm.
right. So similar aspects have to be considered, and then coming up with that, if you not take a certification, these are this is how the building will operate. And if you take a certification, follow the framework, this is the efficiency you get in, and these are the potential uh, uh, say if you have to increase the cost, if that's the ballpark cost that we are looking at, and
Hmm.
these are the potential benefits. Those will be required to be captured so that you give your client a complete holistic picture, and then he can take a decision. So
Okay.
then taking a decision becomes much easier rather than uh, uh, discussing without quantifying what is the actual impact of taking certification. So to do
Okay.
that, any certification professional can help you in putting this together.
Okay.
So,
Yes. Thank you so much.
I want to also mention to those of you who have logged in, actually, it's not just about certification. honestly, I think anything that you build needs to have a comfort condition which is maintained for a large part of the time. I mean, I think that's what everybody strives to do, right? I mean, we're all familiar what the water's scarcity, energy, you know,
Right.
electricity is coming at a price. There are, cuts which are happening, generators running. I mean, so there's like a whole gamut of things which happen. So you really want to look at building something which can give you a comfort condition. And in order to make that happen, I think it would be good to really make that extra effort in trying to convince the clients. Today, there is a lot of information which is available in the net as well on the performance of each material that you select. And really the payback, I think, is maybe just 2 years or 3 years. Or, the days when we used BIPV, actually, the payback was, I think, 20 years. Now it's like come down. Abhishek, how much is it now? I mean,
It's around 4 or 5 years now.
yes. So, when we did bioscience building, which was in early 2000, 2002, the payback was then at 20. But then the client anyway decided to use it at that point of time. It was all imported, etc., etc. But now, so things have made a huge difference to the availability. So I think as an architect, one has to make that little bit of an effort, try convincing, do a little bit of homework. And so it's, yeah.
Yeah, and what any design professional can do is, in case certification is not possible, they can always take a reference of the certification framework and take the best practices which are spelled out, or the requirements which are spelled out, and try to achieve those on the project which they are working on. And to do that, they can refer to multiple certification and pick out whatever fits to the project typology. So that is something which also can be a starting point.
Last question for Tanuja ma'am. The IIT Kanpur building modular hollow columns had been used to house services. How are they drawn out at each floor level? And how different is the construction of a modular building over a conventional one of a similar size?
I'm not sure. Can the person just, I mean, what is really the question?
Shivam, could you please unmute yourself and ask the question? Shivam, are you here? I think he's not here, ma'am.
So basically, the structure, we had used the twin column and the twin beam just so that we could contain the services into those. And those locations were also determined by the layout of the lab, which is what I showed in one of the plans. The lab layout kind of respected the column location and the beam location, or rather, the size of the lab came out of this basic layout. So we started from a basic layout of a lab, what makes it efficient, what distance do we need to place the workbenches, and out of that came the size of the room itself. So we kind of then use the twin beams to channelize the services. So it's easy to access the services within that rather than having to run everywhere. I mean, that was basically the. And I don't know, I don't think that is, I mean, obviously it makes sense to go in for a modular system where you can, because you are looking at efficiency at every stage. So even a normal building, I think there is a certain modularity you look at in everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Abhishek sir. We will now wrap up the session. I'd like to take a moment to thank all our amazing speakers once again, Mr. Raman sir, Abhishek Jain, Sir Tanuja Kanvinde ma'am, and the team behind the IIT Kanpur case study. We are really grateful for your valuable insights and contribution today. A big thank you to all our partners and collaborators who made this event possible, and to all of you for being a part of this journey toward a more sustainable world. Before you go, don't forget to stay connected with us. We will be sharing resources, recordings of today's session, and upcoming events. We have more mentorship sessions lined up. And make sure to follow us on social media and visit our website for more information. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.